Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to continue on with our conversation, and last time we left off at the Osirion, and we were just about to jump over to Peru, and we're going to do that now. We're going to talk about the Coricancha, the platform, as well as some of these inner niches and temples. So I have Phil with me again today. Phil, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Pleasure to join you again, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to move from the India series that we're doing, from Egypt as well, and now to have a look at South America on our journey around the world with the Nubs and other hallmarks that you and I have been studying for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice in South America, what we've been chatting about, to see the variation of Nubs.
Agreed.
And the outside wall shows very, very, very discreetly two sets or a set of two nubs.
I have that photo.
If we look at the blocks around, you can see that there's absolutely no nubs on the blocks at all.
No.
Other than the two sets there. Now, what does that suggest to you, Andrew? That image that we're looking at there,
I mean, it really does look esoteric.
Left-hand side is obviously repurposed.
Of course. Yes, all of this on the left, you can see the mortar in between, the different style of, the course arrangement and the masonry techniques. It's a little bit different, right? This is clearly more superior. And yes, there are two blocks with nubs. One that has the nubs far away from each other. The other block has the nubs very close to each other. And in both cases, the blocks are small. Do they need nubs for lifting? I don't think so. And these nubs don't look the best for lifting. I don't see that here.
As I discussed in the nub language video, Andrew, with this exact same image, It looks to me like an engineering language marker. You wouldn't know as general population that they were even there, would you?
No. I mean,
you wouldn't know. So it would require knowledge for you to know that those nubs and what they meant would be there.
Right.
If they were for lifting or climbing, then you would have them on every block, wouldn't you?
Agreed. I mean,
whereas here, you're only seeing them on two blocks.
Prominent, right? Yes, these are the most prominent, and then you could maybe argue that some of these little lumps up here are the faint traces of nubs, but these are nothing like what's down here at the bottom. Down here at the bottom, they stick out a good inch or two. They make a shadow. They cast a shadow. These up here are very faint, and if it's a byproduct of manufacturing, I don't necessarily see these as conveying any information, but maybe they are conveying information. Hard to say, but they would be all over the wall if they were just a standardized lifting technique. There's clusters like we see at other sites, and there's a correlation between the surface texturing and the processing and finishing and the nubs and their placements.
What I'd like to say as well, if you actually go towards the nubs, if you look at the shape of them,
yes,
they're what you and I have called a standardized kind of shape, with almost like a circular shape above. That is not conducive to something you would stand on if it was for climbing. It would be the other way around.
Agreed.
That just it knocks the climbing theory on the Coricancha out of the window, especially as they're not all the way around the building.
Yeah, and they don't see them holding up any kind of scaffolding or platforms. Again, we would see rows and more prominent nubs. They're too small, and no, this is esoteric. This is something different.
I completely agree.
So we'll move on.
I'd like to move into the internals, maybe.
Yes, agreed.
Some of the photos that we've looked at.
Because this is when it starts to get wild, right? Because now, now we have. I have a couple to show. I think. Where's the one that we like to talk about? Our favorite one. This one, the straight on. We'll look at this one first, because here, like you said, there's a standardized shape. This capital D shape, half round, round on top, flat on bottom nub. And it's mixed in with these other lumpy, more crude nubs or less shapely nubs. and then some more angular
On the
square
block that
nubs.
you're on there, you've also got a bevel-edged line to the left-hand side of it, the
Yes.
right-hand side of it.
Yes.
You've got the ×2 configuration.
Again,
where
yeah.
that block, if it was going to be used for lifting, you and I could lift it with our hand.
I agree.
Why would you have the ×2 configuration and not to the left-hand side of it if it was for lifting or if it was for climbing or whatever?
Yes.
Unless, of course, the building was completely different in its heyday.
True.
And it's been completely repurposed to what we're looking at, but the polygonal nature to the stonework does not suggest that to me. They look as if they're configured in the right spots to where they are, in my opinion.
Agreed. And when you look back at the exterior, we see these, you know, it's a smaller block with these two nubs on it. This looks almost identical to the niche example. So, I mean, we're looking at the outside and the inside, a parallel with the construction styles. So, yes, I'm going to say this is probably more than likely all original because it shares a lot of the same hallmarks as the exterior. And we're talking about the foundation. Again, this is what they had to build first before any of these upper structures could have been installed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned bevels.
You've got to look at the variation within the nub at that as well.
Mm-hmm.
The semicircular, the smaller nubs. Again, if they were going to be for a variant that you were going to climb, they'd be turned the other way, wouldn't they?
Agreed.
You'd slip off it. They're certainly not for lifting because they're not on every block.
Right. And you mentioned
We've
the bevels.
been told that we speak too many times about lifting and about climbing. Well, they are the mainstream theory. That is what we're trying to take away from what people are talking about with reference to the nubs. So we do apologise if we go on about that too much, but we constantly hear this on Twitter. These nubs are for lifting, but look at this one here.
Right.
You certainly aren't lifting that block, are you?
No, I mean, there's too many weird little... I mean, this one, what would you even call this? Is this an elongated nub? And then this very faint one here, off-center again. And then these smaller ones here, bottom and up here. Why are they on these extra little tabs or tanges of material? I don't understand why they would be placed there, especially for a lift.
I bring your attention to the mineralogy, Andrew, with the orange nature to the stone that we see on some of what you would call a quarried stone from outside, where we get the lozenge marker on the blocks.
Sure.
Where it's almost got that orange nature to it, almost as if there was a magnetic quality to it.
That's right.
As if there was a power output towards the stone. I hate to use that term lightly, but we can't get away from the fact that power, when we're looking at a coracantia, could well be in play.
I think so.
Couldn't it?
When we look at, like you said, power, and we have to go to this photo because I really don't understand what's going on here. We just noticed some details about this photo ourselves, but
fantastic, yeah.
We'll start first from right to left. It's more puffy, and there's more of a beveled edge to these blocks, and then over here it seems to smooth out, and the surfaces become smooth and even, but there is a little bit of a transition area, and then we have these weird anomalies. Now, we might have to make a whole video about these. We refer to them as anchor holes because it does look like something was anchored in or roped in or, you know, tied in somehow to these holes, affixed somehow, right? And then when we were looking closer, okay, like I said, we can zoom in and we just noticed some of these little holes. Now, if you can see them, a small rectangular hole, right? Just one? No. Another down here, and then another down below this block. And when we look at another interior shot, we're going to find more of these. And then you can see the stippled nature of the surface texturing. And it
almost looks like a very fine bevel edge on them, doesn't it?
You can see that as well. Yes, there's a beveled edged line, very faint. And then, of course, it gets bigger and, you know, more pronounced as it goes over to the right. Almost like
it's almost like a technology application.
It really is. It's like they changed the setting, and it went from smooth to puffy. And then whatever these are, and however this was involved, and however these square I mean, it looks like an installation of some kind, right? And you have to think maybe metal for something so small and precise.
Agreed.
Are you sticking wood, little pegs in there? I don't know. It seems more like a metal fixture, and maybe it incorporated these anchor holes or these corner holes up here as well. So a really wild photo with really good detail.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
speaking of that, we can jump over to the inside where we were just mentioning. And first of all, this is more of like a beveled style, right? You have these beveled edge blocks. There are areas of it where it's smooth. I can't zoom in on this one, unfortunately, but you can even see from here some of these small holes at these seams and joints in certain areas, and they sort of snake their way up the joinery. And then if you look in the back, you can see a couple blocks with nubs on it. And let me jump over to another photo that's better for you. You guys can see better. This corner, this block, the only one with a nub. The entire rest of this wall does not have nubs. Lifting is ruled out, and climbing is ruled out. And
it's
then
a standardized nub as well with a circular top, isn't it?
That's shape
what
again.
Focuses.
And this one we can zoom in.
Same shape again.
And like we just saw in the last photo, we'll zoom in again because this is a great quality photo. You see at least the partial expression. I'm not sure if these...
Those holes don't go through.
I don't think they do.
Same, do they?
I think they're just divots, right? I think there's a divot on either face of the corner. So it's like they started off to make those anchor holes, but it didn't go all the way through maybe. And it's got the beveled edge, right? And then you look lower, and then more of these rows of these tiny little holes that follow the courses down.
Those tiny little holes are fascinating.
All the way down.
Almost like they were
and then over
pumping
here,
something into the structure or out of the structure or fitment.
if it's fitment, it's like
structure.
What could you say? Outgassing again? I like to say outgassing, but
yeah.
It's a very formal shape, right? It's a rectangular shape almost in some cases. So was it something that just was pushed out by pressure, or was
it looks to me like they almost had control of the power set into the block that they were manipulating.
It does look like they had control over it. Yes, it's wild, isn't it? Yeah, and then it just kind of goes down to here, and then you have a row of them that go across, and then out of frame. But that is wild, right? Something you have to really look close.
Even the nub block has got a bevel line at the bottom of it.
It does, yeah. We'll zoom back in on that. In a lighter color with a darker reddish block next to it. And it's mostly standard course, but there are some deviations where there's some parallelograms and different polygonal blocks.
I'll make you laugh, that reddish colour stone. Where do we see that picture? Now, what on earth would Jerusalem-style mineralogy be doing in South America if our engineers weren't entwined? Well, the nub on that block does prove a worldwide engineering culture, civilization. So were they using mineralogies from different areas of the world? The Warangel stone is blue, isn't it?
Right, yes.
So, that's in India, for those that don't know. So were they using specific stones for specific mineralogies to use on specific buildings?
I like that.
I know we've got advocates, haven't we, that say in the nub community, I like to say, that the nub phenomenon started in South America. Well, we're unsure of where the nub phenomenon started, but I'd like to say that we do see this very fine, sort of almost like they were practicing the art of nubs, polygonal artwork, and the Coricancha doorway, let's be honest, it's some of the most magnificent work in the ancient world.
Right. And speaking of doorways, before we move on from this photo, we have to mention that this set of doorways has some interesting details. More little holes. You can see this one's kind of filled in, but there's a row of holes that go down. They seem to stop. They don't go all the way down. On the last two blocks, they seem to be absent. And on the middle section, they seem to be absent. But on the flanking closest and farthest doorways, there are these. See, this one's white. They filled it in, but it matches this one down here. So they correspond.
Just my opinion, Andrew, but it screams out to me they were trying to keep something inside.
Could be.
There. Like a technological aspect rather than let it out. Do you understand what I mean? Were they hinge holes?
Yeah,
Were they actual doorways? Why would you have them in stone if you were just going to put a wooden doorway on it for argument's sake?
Agreed. Unless we could talk about the door, right? The special door. And how
the door, yeah. Our favourite door in the ancient world.
It is so wild, right? It's polygonal, interlocking. It appeared to have once had an upper opening and then a lower opening, and then the middle was blocked, but it's all smashed through now. It has the same phenomenon of these anchor holes or corner holes, and they are also, in conjunction with some of these grooves that we don't really know how to describe. You could say that things were threaded into them. Okay, sorry about the break. Jumping back here. The lower part of the door, you can see more of this beveling going on. You can see the change in angle here, this extra bevel. More of these anchor holes or corner holes. Some of them are just divots. They're not complete holes all the way through. Other ones have channels that connect them to other parts of this facade door, false door, or functioning door.
The one train of thought, Andrew, is that there's some kind of power cabling that went through this. Well, let's expand on that.
Okay.
When it comes to holes, you could either have, yes, cables, you could have water, you could have gases that run through them. Now, when we looked at the last image,
yeah, I was going to go back
beforehand, you have those, if there was gases running through and water running through, as an engineer myself,
or this one
that would mean one thing, like you've mentioned with me, almost like welding attributes could have been used. Now, I'm only surmising here because the holes exist. It is physical evidence. It is there. So why would they be there? Was there another fixture to the door simply?
Yeah, this one's right in the corner.
Was there something more extravagant? Yes, okay, it might not be power cables, but it was something. So was it water output or was it gases? And if so, how did they know what gases would combust to give you the welding attribute at this point in time?
Of course, and the other objects, right, that have the same kind of divot holes and hard angles and everything, right, sure. We can go back to the upper image, because the upper image shows the lintel is really interesting because it's almost braided. They have lots of lines and holes going through them. And there's others of these. I think there's some other loose pieces laying next to this, right, in the hallway that have more lines and grooves in them. So it's very fascinating.
That middle block that's just underneath the one that you're on, it's an entire corner block. So the middle holes would be pumping either into the building or out of the building, for want of a better description to that.
Sure. I mean, you can see some of them, they taper like cones down to a very small point down to the bottom. And I think that's almost like a pinch point, right? In electric universe terms, we call that a Z-pinch or something, right? The electrical Z-pinch point. Yeah. I don't know if you want to, whatever terms you want to use, electrical, carved, sculpted, molded. It was done somehow, and, was metal installations or fixtures in these grooves, something to think about, right? Copper, gold.
With them grooves, was there a heat application that actually predominantly pushed into that? Was it a pipe? Couldn't have been gases that caused that groove. Would have had to have been heat application, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or it would have been something sat on top of it.
Right.
What would that have been? Metallic, maybe?
I mean, when we hear about, or we see all those clamps in other structures, they are, typically the hourglass shape or the capital I shape, but maybe there's some more variation to some of these clamps, and this is another variation of clamping. Who knows?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, could be that, yeah.
I really like that door. It's pretty amazing.
To have a clamp like that holding that door, though, would suggest that there's something of extreme power that could have moved the doorway in the first instance.
Yes, and you can see that, there are other blown out areas. There could have been other fixtures. I can't zoom, sorry. But, yeah, there are spaces for other hinges, door blocks, something, all kinds of different possibilities. But that does look like there was more fixtures in the past that maybe were on both sides, above, and including this central door, which is very weird, right? It's not like these other doors. It's raised. It's got all the weird bits in it. It has closed areas and open areas to it. Who knows what this
I don't know whether you've got any of the original top of that.
I do.
Images where you've almost got what looks like a schematic. For maybe the engineering content to it.
These are so weird. I like talking about these because, again, you'll see a change, right? Over here, smooth. You see some polygonal L-shaped elements, a bevel line. As it goes down, you'll see some interesting tick marks, and then the bevel line kind of shifts and changes, and then boom, all of a sudden we get some deep groove scratch marks. These go around to the other side, and then you'll see other, what would you call them? They're nubs, but they're very faint, little small bits. I'll have to bring up another angle, but yes, there's something going along the top of the temple here that's trying to say something.
I'd like to add as well that a lot of them top blocks have been moved in our area.
I'm sure that there's been a lot of hiding of it.
They were studying them.
Nefarious restorations. Yes, we talk about that. So there could have been more to this in the past that we only see a fraction of it today, maybe. You know, where was the actual top of the structure supposed to be? Was the bevel line the stepped for the next course? The next course only maybe came out to here, and then these grooves were exposed, and you were supposed to see those for whatever reason. Hard to say, right? But there is something going along the top of the temples that is incomplete, and you know there must be something going on as far as a communication of something. Either this is just, like you said, a mason's mark that is just for the mason to understand, or maybe there's something more esoteric, like, you know, shadow play and sundials and things like that. And maybe we have more instances of these anchor holes and weird bits going on again here, right? See some of these little pinch points. Maybe this is a hole that goes through. Maybe if you took a string, you could go through that hole like you can with some of the statues in India. I wonder.
Absolutely.
But another great wall, yeah. And we could talk about all these different walls and the niches. I mean, I really like the inner niche. We've talked about this a lot. You know, it is a cluster of nubs and in configurations that look esoteric, like they're trying to say something. And then we have the bevel changes too, like down here in the bottom left. You'll see that there's a smooth texture above, and then you kind of have this line where it sticks out more. It's more puffy. What is the change about? How did that occur? Was it a setting change on their technology? Was it just a method change? Is this where they just decided, okay, from here up we're going to put our message and we need to smooth the wall a little bit better before we do that?
I think it's important as well to mention that you've got, like we always said, the standardized circular nub.
Yes, of course, right.
You've got a square nub. You've got the polygonal block with a nub on.
Yeah, and these other
and then
polygonal
you've got blocks with no nubs on.
Of course,
so,
yeah.
Like we discussed with Crispin at the Stone of Language on Twitter, do they place these on different parts of the polygonal stonework to show the language, like I suggest on the language one?
Right.
It's
like the different
joinery parts of the block as well.
Of course, this one over here off center.
Although the variation we discuss is, in this instance, they're not on every block, are they?
No.
So we're saying the variation is, they're not on every block. There are standardized nubs. There are square nubs. The triangular nubs that you might find aren't necessarily in Peru, are they?
Not that we found.
As much as what we find elsewhere.
We would find those more in Greco-Roman areas, right? And maybe there's a reason for that. Still don't know the reason. But yes, not all expressions are everywhere. But yeah, maybe there's a regional explanation for the triangular nub in the region of Asia Minor and, you know, the Greco-Roman territories, purportedly.
Yeah, great.
So yeah, very interesting wall, and I believe I have one other angle of it. Yeah, the opposite angle to prove the point that, yeah, there are clusters again, gaps, a bevel line that does some weird stuff. You know, it kind of undulates. It doesn't stay at the same level. It kind of dips and rises. The puffy below, and how it goes to smooth above. These are ashlar blocks, ashlar connections, perfect connections. And yeah, these double lobe nub blocks again, kind of like we saw on the outside, two near each other again. Maybe there's a significance, again, with the placement of...
I think we have to point out as well, they're not on every block.
Of course.
There's no way they were for lifting.
Of course.
Not for climbing.
No.
Certainly not wood.
No.
Standardized nub configuration, and then you've got blocks with none on.
Of course.
So with all the arguments we come up against, the Coloughcanty debunks them all.
It really does, yeah. And I have another photo that shows it even better. We were just talking about it before we started recording. This one. I mean, look at this. This block here, they're off-center, and they're tiny. It's not going to be a lifting configuration. This one as well, off-center and small by itself. And then if we zoomed out on this wall, and I have
a rock climber to actually use them for climbing as well, wouldn't it?
Agreed, right. And I have another angle, I think, zoomed out. Was it this one? Yes. Yeah, so it's a different angle, but yes, again, the same block down here at the bottom with the two nubs off center. You can see they're not on every block again. They are clustered on the corner. It goes around the corner, but then stops. So what's going on here? Why did they choose the corner? And why are some blocks like here, this patch, absent of nubs? They form some kind of pattern, a cluster. If you want to talk constellations or solar shadow play, all these options are open right now. We really don't know. We're still in
I personally would like to think it's dating.
It could very well
be.
be.
That side of looks like it could date the temple to me using the 25,000 year clock star alignment, and this part of it could date the temple.
Like a
I know
dedication.
Crispin thinks that he's found what this actually suggests it says, but to me it looks like it's dating the temple with the variations.
It's foundational information, right? This is part of the original construction, so it is obviously going to say something about that era of the construction. Now, like we said, if this is just Mason's marks for the Masons to understand, that's fine, but this shows what the Mason was reading, right? This is very primary information that we're seeing on these temples. This isn't, we can rule out that this came from someone later on re-inhabiting the site. No, this can't be done. You can carve into something, but you can't pull material out like this secondarily. This is a primary, when the blocks were made, when the structure was done. That's what this evidence is. Right. So yeah, just a good wall because it shows the clustering and how you can maybe see some of these patterns going on. Another great one from Ben over at Uncharted X. We're going to steal this photo from him, but it's okay because I'm a patron. You look up and you see the difference in the surface treatments. Some of them are very smooth across each block. Then they have a puffy nature that kind of starts to develop. Then you have the different lobes of material. Some of them are, you almost can't even classify as nubs, but then ones above, very prominent. You see how they kind of twist to the sides like taffy. They don't all stick out straight. They're very shapely and variable. They're not all the standardized uniform lifting boss like mainstream wants to tell you.
Yeah, completely agree. And like with that wall there, when you look at the standardized nubs, the square nubs and so on at the Acropolis, they are standard to the block. These aren't. It's almost as if they were playing around with like the technology, the smoothness, the puffy nature, the bevel block nature, how far the nubs protrude, what shapes they wanted. And so in some respects, it's almost like they were tinkering around with how to do the technique for me.
Yeah, because like here again, you see a smooth section, and then it goes to a more puffy section. And, you know, if you wanted to say, well, the upper area is later, well, it's the exact same mineralogy material. It's right. So the later people went to the exact same quarry and got the exact same quality blocks from the same source, right? I don't think so. I think this is all done at the same time. And like you said, they were playing around with the surface treatment technique or setting, and then they got to this course, and then they changed over. No, we want to start saying something, or we want to start incorporating the nubs now.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to change our method so that we incorporate more of the nubs and the bevels.
The three holes as well. You get the three nub configuration in South America. You get the three nub configuration above the Menkure pyramid door that we've looked at. Here, it's not three nubs, it's like a protrusion where you'd have like an air intake or an air outtake or water or a gas or whatever that was coming through them. But nonetheless, that three is very prominent now. Whether it's aiming at a pyramidal, you know, what the power was. I know that Dave Hannaran is a massive fan of that. You know, the three archways, whatever we can link it to. But in this instance, at the Coricancha, there was something coming through there, like on the door, like on the holes that we saw at the top of the Coricancha when we were looking. There was something coming through. Now, was it water, cabling, gas? I'm not sure, but it was something, Andrew. Yeah,
I mean, we can say all kinds of possibilities. We say blown out nubs, and we wonder how that happens. Like here again, in the niche, like we looked at earlier, you have a nub. This was a nub, but what happened to it? How did the cavitation happen like this? Why the darker color? Is it gas that did this? Is it electricity that did this? what kind of, an air pocket in the softened material? What do you want to say? How do you describe it? Okay, guys, we're getting a little long in our conversation here, and we could spend hours and hours talking about some of these sites, especially Cusco and Coricancha in particular, but we'll close some things up today. Just going off of what we were talking about before with the nubs, we will, let's see if I can bring this down. We will talk about these angular nubs, these more sharp, refined, defined nubs in the niche area here, this kind of focus or focal point of the inner curved wall of the Coricancha, the platform wall. So yeah, you can see here, like you were saying to me, Phil, that some of these blocks don't need nubs for lifting at all. Right out. This one right here, the nub is almost as big as the block. So no way. No way, right? And then these configurations here that mirror each other, these are placed there for a reason, either for an installation or just to be there the way they are as esoteric.
Or shadow play for an internal language.
Sure. Like
also, people mix underneath the block with the ×2 to the right. Underneath that, there's a little baby one at the bottom. People miss it.
Yes, and there's a couple other ones like that peppered, right? You have to really look, and of course, at that size and that shape, we're ruling out lifting again. The blocks are too small to need them. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about some kind of crane lowering them at that point? And then how do you get around these polygonal angles with such a crane and all this? It just doesn't compute. It doesn't compute, and these configurations are telling you, look deeper. There's something more being said, right? I really like that photo.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
I have another one.
Absolutely agree. And the mineralogy differences as well. I mean, look at the size of that.
It's huge, right?
It's almost the same size as the block. It's just whether that was meant to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Andrew.
I mean,
as in, because it looks as if it's not quite as tight fitment as
I'll give you that.
of them, but it's still a large nub nonetheless.
I will say that maybe this is not the original location for this block, but this block totally comes from this wall somewhere, right? And there's another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Do I have the other side of the niche? Well, here's another angle of it first. Yes. This is...
If you look
this is the right side one, yes.
I mean, you've almost got an angular nub.
Oh, it's very sharp.
Up.
Very sharp,
So
and angles up. Yeah, I see that.
If you're going to put rope under that, it'd just slip off.
That's a good point,
If you're going
right?
to put a hemp under it, it'd slip off. Why would you? Because you could lift it with your hand.
Yes, here we go. Yeah, so there's two that are just like each other on either side. So...
Great shot, that is.
I mean, yeah, it really makes you wonder where they... I mean, maybe the top row was reconfigured. I'll give you that. It could be done, right? But these were involved in this wall somehow. And when you look at the lower portions, the lower courses, and the configurations that are there, then those above obviously had something to do with it. Maybe the Inca or later peoples tried to put the structure back together. We've seen that at the Sun Gate. They put a block back up that had a nub on it that wasn't supposed to go there. But, they're trying.
Yeah.
They're trying to... I mean, there was a venerable... or they venerated these ruins, and they really tried to take care of them the best they could. So I would say that these blocks above, if this isn't the original location, it's very close by. Like somewhere in this wall, these upper courses were involved.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and
you've also got what looks like an inverted nub right over on the far side.
I see that too. Yeah. I know it's a little blurry, but I mean, yeah, like the other one over there that's blown out on the left side, this again looks like either an inverted nub or a blown out nub where it's pushed in.
Two very shallow nubs to the right hand side as well.
Off center.
Yeah.
And maybe more, again, like we saw on the outside.
The variation on these is so different, aren't they?
I mean, yeah, and like the outside had those
very
faint
different
ones.
Variations.
It's really hard to describe. They almost like they turned on the nubs, and they were first faint, and then they got really angular, and then they turned them down and turned them off again. It's hard to describe, right? But they cluster around this.
It's like a power setting. I keep saying that, but it does feel like a power setting. They were adjusting power.
It does feel like that, and I think it
of
too.
some kind. The mineralogy suggests that, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, there's just too many wild stuff going on. And then, like, we brought it before, and I'm going to bring this up now because these deserve their own episode. We're going to get to this episode soon. The small filler stone, the small corner filler stone. This is a global hallmark. This is something that's not the nubs, but it's related to architecture that has nubs.
I think everyone's seen these in Egypt as well, haven't they?
Sure. There's a few
We've
places.
seen these in India.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I did an episode recently, and they were on a church in Great Britain. They were on castles in Great Britain.
yes, you
I
have.
mean, we could find so many filler stones, but
The
South
Ahu
America does
right?
have some of the smallest
on
filler
Easter
stones.
Island.
And that to me is like a mason's mark,
It's got to be.
more than the nubs.
I mean, this
The
was
builder's mark
deliberate.
more than the nubs.
This wasn't like, oops, we broke the corner off, so we need to put something in. No, they stuck that there deliberately, and in some of the other examples we will show, it was a deliberate, focal point of the wall. Like the Ahu on Easter Island, that filler stone was put there specifically. And the one in Silistani, Peru, that's almost a mirror image of that. And it has nubs on it as well, of course. So there's more to this at Persepolis, many different places. I like the idea of the four corners of the world, or maybe some kind of four corners of the world symbolism. That's the story of Persepolis, is that they were the four corners of the world civilization. So, we'll investigate that, and we'll dig deeper on some of these. But we have a lot of really good examples to show from around the world, just like with those anchor holes. I have a few of those now from Baalbek, from a lot from Egypt, and then maybe I think Vlad9VT just showed us one from India. So I really want to talk about those, and those deserve their own episode.
Speaking of Baalbek, Andrew, I'd like to say a huge thank you to our very own Ziggy Dan.
Yes.
For his series.
He's on what, 4 now? Yeah, I think he's on video 4 now. So everyone go watch
he's
all
on video 4, but I mean, after the initial nubs that I found back all them moons ago, he's found some fantastic examples of nubs there, especially on his lathe.
Yes, he has.
Big hello to the team, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you very much for all their hard work day to day on finding hallmarks in stone with nubs. Hello to all of you. But thanks, Ziggy, for all your hard work on the nub phenomenon that you do. Sure, you've got a couple of thank yous as well, Andrew, to do before we go today.
Yes, I will. Just to reiterate, everyone, please go watch all of his videos, even the India ones as well. I really like his style. It's short, quick, to the point, no narration. If you have listened to a couple of our conversations, you get the idea, you get tired of us saying lifting bosses, well then go over to Ziggy's videos, and they're like 5-10 minutes long, real quick, you get the idea, get in, get out, get the information. I like it. It's like a complement to our longer form discussions. So yeah, I would also like to thank ENDEVOURS Wake, a new member of our team. He has decided to start making his own videos. Very excited. He has a really strong start. I'm going to put a link in the description for his channel and for Ziggy's videos too. And then I would also like to have everyone go watch Vlad9VT's latest. He did one on knobs in India temples, and I sent him the whole list of all of the India temples, so hopefully he sees that comment and gets to find some more on his own, hopefully too. And then lastly, who else would I like to thank? I've already forgotten, Phil. We've got...
it's the latest video that you watched from
yes,
Indy.
Yes, this guy... Okay, now, I got to explain. This guy, Lindy Beige, Lloyd, he is a bit of a history fan. He's a bit of a miniature war gamer, World War II buff, but also likes Roman history, medieval history. Funny guy, good personality. I like him a lot. And he just did a video on an ancient church or monastery or site in Britain. And the way he talks about the architecture, it's just like the way we talk about it, about how things are recycled and this element shouldn't go there and the original structure stopped here and all these great details. And he's a really good guy. I like him a lot. Good personality, really funny. So I'll put his link in the description as well. Lindy Beige is his channel. And you'll probably find a few more related channels off of him that you might like too. A lot of related guys. So I will go ahead and finish up with all my... yeah, I think that's it. I don't think I can think of anybody else today, but I'm sure in our next conversations we'll have more people to mention. But for today, I think we'll say that's enough. But thanks to everybody who has been helping us out on Twitter, of course.
Thanks for watching.
Got to mention the Twitter team. Everybody, thank you over there for all you all do every day. You're giving us all these photos. A lot of these come from you guys. So thank you all in the community. And thanks, Phil, for hanging out with me again. And look forward to...
Speak again soon.
Yeah, we'll talk again. We'll look maybe to a different region. Maybe we'll go up to Greco-Roman territory in the next video. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. That's all for today. Look forward to more of these, kind of casual conversations, but maybe we'll get into some more details, and maybe we'll get some questions from you guys we can answer too if you have some more details you want us to mention. So thanks again for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next time.